This is the Mind of the Meanie. Here are your hosts, the Blue Meanie and Adam Barnard.
Peace, world, and welcome everybody to the Mind of the Meanie, your weekly peek into the world, according to former WWE superstar and ECW original, the Blue Meanie. We'll cover wrestling, music, movies, sports, and lots of useless knowledge, all contained in the Mind of the Meanie. I'm your tour guide, Adam Barnard, and he is the Blue Meanie. Meanie, what's on your mind, man?
Man. In the words of Mick Jagger, what a drag it is getting older, man. Wow, just what a week.
Yeah,
what a week.
dude.
What a month.
Yeah.
When you think about it. But got hit with a double whammy this week with the passing of Ozzy Osbourne and passing of Hulk Hogan. What, 2 days later, 1 day later?
I think it was like the next day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a blur.
Whew.
But and then personally, like earlier in that week, there's a super fan named Roddy Hogan who, if you ever watch wrestling shows from Michigan, like when I first started wrestling in Michigan, I would go, wrestle in indies, and there's always this fan that was dressed like Hulk Hogan named Roddy Hogan, and he was like the Michigan version of Hat Guy. He was always at the shows, always in the front row. He passed away this week as well, like a couple days before Hulk.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, Roddy passed away. Oh God, Ozzy passed away. Hulk passed away.
Yeah.
And it's even crazier when you think back in May, Rick Derringer, who wrote and recorded Real American, the Hulk Hogan theme, passed away in May. So it's like, man, it's like, well, and then also, Theo Huxtable,
I was just gonna,
Malcolm-Jamal Warner, he got fair fauceted a little bit, with, if you remember back, 15 years ago, something like that, Farrah Fawcett passed away. Everybody's giving her flowers. All of a sudden, Michael Jackson dies, and then she got overshadowed. Her death got overshadowed. But yeah, Malcolm-Jamal Warner passed. The singer from the band Golden Earring passed.
Chuck Mangione passed as well. I know Vanessa just reminded me in the group chat here, but I saw that. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I wanted to say Sergio for some reason. I don't know why. But Chuck Mangione, a fucking yacht rock staple.
Yeah.
But yeah, just pieces of my childhood, just breaking off and fluttering into the sun, and just what a crazy day. I mean, crazy month, crazy week.
It's been a tough week for Gen Xers and fucking millennials, man. It's been a tough week, bro. I was at work, and I think I heard about Malcolm-Jamal Warner when I was walking through the garage at the office, and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, that can't be right, and then you find out what happened. You're like, oh my God, that's tragic. Absolutely awful. And I mean, just a part of one of the biggest shows of the 1980s, just a massive loss to people who watched the Cosby Show as a kid, and then Ozzy, and we're going to spend most of the episode talking about, going back and forth between Ozzy and Hogan and talking about that. And we want to thank you for joining us this morning. If you're here with us on patreon.com/Mind of the Meanie, we appreciate you each and every week joining us to watch the live show.
Yeah.
But man, I think it was more. I think it was it's shocking for all three of them, right? Because you got I think at some point too, with older celebrities and people that are from our childhood, you kind of get accustomed to stuff happening, but I don't think you expect it to happen when it does. And even when it still does, you're like, oh man, this sucks. This is the shits. But especially with Ozzy too. Like we can start with Ozzy and kind of, pull it apart from there. But Ozzy was like, he just did we were just talking about it last week or 2 weeks ago about his final concert, weren't we?
The farewell to Ozzy and farewell
Yeah.
to Black Sabbath. And, it's crazy. You always hear about that guy who, works for 50 years at a job, and then he retires, and then he's not working anymore. He's got a set schedule. He's not doing the set schedule anymore, and he passes away like a month later.
Yeah,
you always hear those stories. It's either that or if somebody loses a spouse. The other spouse is not too far behind.
Yeah.
There's that void. But Ozzy's been battling with the Parkinson's, and you read stories, and you don't know what's true, what's not true. You take it with a grain of salt and just hope everything's okay. But watching the tribute concert, he battled, man, like in a good way. I mean, like you knew he had the Parkinson's, but he no-sold the Parkinson's and sang like a champ. Like he sounded great. He was still Ozzy, still in the Ozzy mannerisms. You could tell he wanted to get up out of that chair and just run around like, back in the day. Do the Ozzy frog stomp where he like goes down and is like, if you're a child of the 80s, if you're a child of the 80s, all of Ozzy's mannerisms, running around throwing a bucket of water on people, and just you could tell he wanted to do all that but couldn't. But and it was a beautiful day, that whole show, where bands got up, played two of their songs, played an Ozzy song or a Sabbath song, and and then the final Ozzy set and then Black Sabbath set. Apparently, I guess that they filmed a lot of other stuff that show is going to be released and put in the theaters like next year, which I'm assuming is going to be like like a in-depth documentary type thing. But just to see, I think in a way I think Ozzy knew, and then I think that his inner circle knew, and that just the fact that he battled and made it to the set and got through it, and then a video has come out like Kelly posted a photo of Ozzy just sitting there at the breakfast table, and he looked just fine. It tells you how fragile life is, just you can look fine and be saying good morning, and a couple of days pass away. So it's just start thinking about all the memories of growing up in the 80s, and Ozzy scaring the shit out of me as a kid, and it's going to take a while to get over this one.
Yeah, Ozzy was that was a tough one, man. I remember even in the 90s growing up, he was still really prevalent on the rock and roll stations, and also remember him scaring the ever living shit out of me until I learned about Marilyn Manson, and I was like, oh, Ozzy doesn't seem that scary anymore. But it's been really cool to watch people pay their respects to Ozzy. I guess Ozzy, I know, had said a couple of times, he was like, oh, I don't really know if I would call myself heavy metal. He's like, we just do or like a hard rock, he's like, we just play music. And I think that's like a cool way to look at it, I guess, himself. But at the same time, like, man, you created an entire genre, right? Like an entire avenue of music for people that's still being reverberated today. And if you don't know much about Ozzy, if you're listening to this, you don't know much about Ozzy. Like Ozzy's favorite band was the Beatles.
Yeah.
And he loved the Beatles. And there was a video I saw that was floating around about Ozzy talking to Paul McCartney and meeting him for the first time. and he is genuinely starstruck. Like you can just tell he's like just dumbfounded by the whole experience. And I think that's really that's a testament to not just the Beatles as performers, but also just Ozzy as a person, right? Like here he is, everybody's got this idea of Ozzy Osbourne as this like wild man, and here he is dumbing out about Paul McCartney like everybody else, you know. I just thought it was interesting, and I've it's been nice to see him getting his flowers, even though I know that everybody celebrated him, you know, as much as possible while he was alive. And I think one of the parts of his legacy that people don't talk about is the reality show component of, you know, him and his family changing the game for how MTV, you know, presented content on their network. You know, I mean, the Osbournes was probably the most recognizable, the most popular reality show in the early 2000s. Like that they were the reason why most of the reality shows that you're watching now are still on TV or even were premiering because of that show. And so I think for him to be able to say, like, you know, to have that double legacy in some ways, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. The only thing I have against the Osbournes is the fact that there was a story recently came out that Alex Van Halen was talking about how Van Halen had approached Ozzy to collaborate with them. And to the point where, like, I forget what magazine it was. And then the magazine reached out to Ozzy's camp, and they're like, yeah. He's like, yeah. Ozzy was like, I was absolutely on board to, you know, at least work with them, try some stuff out. But then the reality show came along. He had to devote all his time to doing the Osbournes. So, son of a bitch. How cool would that be? You know, hearing Ozzy singing "Running with the Devil." You know,
yeah.
The Prince of Darkness singing "Running with the Devil." But yeah,
that was nuts, man.
Yeah, the show was beautiful. You know, it's one thing to have a tribute show once somebody passes away, but to be able to do it while they're still here,
yeah,
and let them, you know, soak it in and, you know, get their flowers, and seeing all the behind the scenes stuff too from that day was awesome. You know, seeing Axl Rose, you know, and Ozzy meet for the first time, was awesome. You know, Ozzy's like, at my age, it's very rare that you meet another legend. You know, and that was pretty cool. You know? But like, you know, the behind the scenes of them, you know, all the bands, all the, you know, musicians got together and posed with Ozzy as he sat in his chair. And all the, like, the banter back and forth, and Ozzy still had his wits about him, man. And they're all busting balls, and it was great. But now, it's like one of those things where you're just sitting there, and then all of a sudden you get barraged with people, you know, saying Ozzy died, and you're just like, oh my God. You know, first thing I do is put on, you know, the radio, put on WMMR, and they're just starting their Ozzy tribute. You know, it's like one of those things, you know, somebody passes away, you know, like musician dies, I put on MMR because MMR does like a fantastic job of, you know, celebrating that person and then playing music all day. And then I've just been listening to Ozzy pretty much Ozzy nonstop since I found out, and just going into deep dives and songs I forgot about. And he's got such a huge catalog of music. And, you know, it's just like when you look back and you think how stupid people are, you know, just to put him in that one corner of saying he's a devil worshiper, and, you know, all this stuff. And of course he played it up, you know, never let the truth get in the way of a good rumor. You know? But, and then you see all the interviews and you see how, like, soft spoken and kind-hearted he is, but he had this persona, you know, back in the 80s, that he was the devil. If you played his records backwards, you know, there's a message, and it's like he outlived all that.
He did.
Just to be accepted by so many different forms of music, to where, you know, Carrie Underwood's doing one of his songs, or, you know, just different people are, you know, Ozzy went from being, the Prince of Darkness, heavy metal, to being classic rock,
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite, this is going to be a super deep cut. I genuinely don't know how many people know about this record. Okay.
Okay.
One of my favorite Ozzy records of all time, okay, is from the Chef Aid album that South Park did in the late 90s. Okay. It's the record's called Nowhere to Run. It's Ozzy Osbourne, DMX, Old Dirty Bastard, and the beat is produced by the Crystal Method.
Nice.
Isaac Hayes does the intro to the song. Back together at last. Ozzy Osbourne, Old Dirty Bastard, DMX, and Crystal Method. It is a fucking trip. But apparently, from what I understand, I remember back when I think it was, I can't remember if it was, what was the talk show Sharon was on? She had her own show where she was guest hosting something. I can't remember, but
yeah,
Ozzy and DMX were friends.
Yeah.
They were collaborators, but they were also friends. And like Sharon Osbourne has said multiple times, I think, and you might have to fact check me. It may have been on the show, but I know she said a couple times after that, like DMX was like a family friend. And like to that point about him collaborating with everybody, you know what I mean? Like imagine like somebody telling you that like he's a huge influence in hip hop horrorcore culture, like that's crazy. So I'll put that record in the comments here shortly. If you've never heard it, you should go out of your way to check it out. But it's like I feel like DMX and ODB like really captured that essence of what Ozzy did and what he was trying to convey in his music. And it's one of my favorites. Like I'm a big, that's it. Thank you. Mass Entity says it was The Talk. I believe that was the show she was on. DL Hughley was the guest. There's a video floating around. DMX was late. He was supposed to show up to the show, and I guess they were recording it live, and they had to stall. And then all of a sudden, DMX just comes out of nowhere while they're talking. He just waltzes right out on the stage. But no, man, it's I'm excited to go back and see, because like I said, I think I remember them saying that there's going to be some kind of documentary about the last concert. Yeah. So if they do have something, I'm excited to see that. I'd love to go back. I've seen a couple of clips flown around online, from the last show and his last performance and stuff. And it was phenomenal. But, brother, then the next day, 2 days later, rather, where was it? Jesse Brown says Ozzy was on Tuesday and Hulk was on Thursday. Man, I thought, yeah, Jesse, DMX did have Marilyn Manson on a song back in the day too. That is correct. Yeah, Marilyn Manson has collaborated with a significant amount of hip hop artists over the course of his career.
Just did a song with Jelly Roll.
Yes, he did. He did. Again, like these guys, like you have to remember, like I was listening to Rock the Bells. I had to drive Brad Feinberg, Trainer to the Stars, to the airport this morning, and I'm listening to LL Cool J's Rock the Bells radio on Sirius XM. And Slayer, they're talking about Slayer and their stuff that they used to do with Public Enemy. And here it turns out, I don't know if y'all know this, but LL Cool J taught something to me today, Meanie. Friend of the show and avid listener, Kerry King of Slayer, did the guitar solo and riff in No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys.
Oh, absolutely. That and Fight for Your Right to Party. That's Kerry King as well. So,
and I
knew that because he was in the video,
right? The common theme is Rick Rubin, and it's like that. Just like so, you have when you think about all these different genres and these different music, like there is such an intersection between heavy metal and hip hop. Like they basically are cut from the same cloth. So I'm not surprised to find out that Manson, or that rather Ozzy, did something with Jelly Roll. But man, then you find out about Hogan, dude, and you're like, holy.
Right.
Like that was a big one. That was, I mean, not to say that Ozzy wasn't, but it's just like 2 back-to-back massive names like that is
2 huge
crazy
pieces of pop culture.
Yeah.
And Bubba the Love Sponge was, talk about how Hulk's health was bad and he was in a coma, this, that, and the other thing. And you're like, I don't know what to believe here.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up Thursday, to, a photo. Somebody took me a photo of Hulk goes, "Oh, this is a tough one." I'm like, "Oh, what now?" Of course, I run to the interwebs, and it's just, and then here comes the text messages, bing, 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 just
Yeah.
tell me that Hulk's dead, and you're trying to just piece it together, and find out what happened, and learned that it was cardiac arrest, um, and then thoughts of my childhood just start flooded in, just like with Ozzy.
Yeah.
Ozzy passed away. I'm thinking of my cousin Tommy's bedroom. He had a "Speak of the Devil" poster on the wall that just scared the shit out of me. Ozzy with a mouthful of blood, and then Hulk passes, and I'm just thinking about the first time you see him in Rocky 3, and then I'd always seen him in the aftermags, but I mean, I it took a while for me to actually see him in action.
Yeah.
Well, now we have that show Entertainment Tonight, but I'm old enough to remember when like Entertainment Tonight was a new show.
Yeah.
But like there were always be these regional shows, like the magazine style shows. One was called PM Magazine, and the other was called Philly. We got a show called Evening Magazine. It would be like 7:00, 7:30, back to back with Entertainment Tonight. And Evening Magazine was the first time I actually got to see Hulk and hear Hulk talk, and and it was so bizarre. And they were showing clips of him doing something in the ring. He was doing something in the ring with. I at first I thought it was Ken Patera, but it was Dr. D. David Schultz and Mr. Saito, and it was weird watching wrestling that wasn't WWF kind of thing. It's just and I hear him talk, and he's shooting a double bicep, walking towards the camera. I'm like, he was just so much larger than life.
Yeah.
And not too long after that, he came to the WWF, and I remember watching every Saturday morning religiously as I did. Bob Backlund, who had just lost the title, was wrestling one of the Samoans. They had all three out there, Alpha Sika and Samu, and Bob Backlund being outnumbered, runs back through the curtain, comes back with Hulk Hogan, and is like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
Pre-internet. The dirt sheets were out there, but I didn't learn about the dirt sheets until at least 89, maybe 88, 89, and just being alive for that Hogan era and watching it just rise and rise and rise and rise was a special time to be a wrestling fan. People shit on Hogan because he wasn't having 5-star matches, but he didn't need to have 5-star matches. Oh man, Hulk
wasn't the point. It wasn't the point.
Yeah, Hulk knew how to wrestle in Japan, and somehow he forgot when he came to. No, he knows how to work.
Yeah. Thank you.
How to work. Not wrong with having 5-star. When I was a kid, they were called scientific matches. He's a good scientific wrestler, because they do all the chain wrestling and fancy moves, and those matches are great too. But if you want to make money and draw people into the building, you got to be larger than life, and you got to be able to talk them into the building. I mean, Muhammad Ali most famously said, he was about to have a boxing event in Vegas, and the night before his boxing event, there's a wrestling show. And he went to the wrestling show and saw Gorgeous George. He's like, "Well, let me do the math. The wrestling show is drawing 5,000 fans, and boxing is drawing 500. I think I'm going to have to, and that inspired, Gorgeous George inspired, Muhammad Ali to, talk people into the building, put on a persona. And Hulk Hogan was the ultimate persona for professional wrestling in the 80s. When you think about it, so, the world's dealing with the Cold War, Russia's the enemy, and Japan's still kind of like the enemy. So all the wrestlers from Japan are evil, and all the wrestlers, quote unquote, from Russia are evil. You got Iran, all the 1980s, political villains. Pro wrestling was a microcosm of society.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling is a microcosm of the world, and Hogan was the ultimate American hero, come to life. And he was so over, nobody even really cared that he was, going bald. But just you would thought he was over, like, he had like a long flowing locks, like you thought he had Fabio hair the way he was over.
Yeah.
But he was so over and could talk and draw people in that he made not only Vince McMahon a lot of money, I mean, he made a lot of wrestlers a lot of money, because as a wrestler, everybody wanted to be on his show, on his cards,
Mm-hmm.
But it was the perfect storm. Hulk, Vince McMahon needed a top attraction, and Hulk Hogan needed a promoter who knew how to, exploit his talents. And
Yeah.
it was the chocolate and the peanut butter coming together, man. And just, they're the perfect, duo to, take over the world.
Yeah. It's and Mass Entity says it here too. That's what I've been thinking a lot about recently. It's very possible that if Hulkamania didn't happen like it did, we wouldn't be here in this chat. And I 110% agree. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have been expressing that recently. Like, without Hogan and without the rise of Hulkamania, none of this exists.
Right.
None of this happens. Right.
Oh.
And so I think from a career perspective, from a character perspective, like you said, Hogan knew the audience. He knew who he was playing to. He's going to have a different style when he goes to Japan than he does when he comes to the American audiences, because he's not performing for the Japanese audiences when he does, the big boot, the leg drop, and the flexing, and Hogan must pose and all that stuff. Like, that's not what the Japanese audience wants. So you see these videos, and that's what he's doing, right? But what an indelible mark on wrestling and on pop culture, right? I mean, you think about both Ozzy and Hulkster. I mean, you can't get bigger in the 1980s and early 1990s than the two of them. Yeah. As far as entertainers, as far as pop culture phenomenon, it's hard to imagine either of them, or it's harder to imagine maybe outside of Michael Jackson, somebody as large as the two of them. But and then again, he has the career resurgence in the 90s.
Yeah.
How many, and again, like there's been a lot of talk about Hogan's legacy and a lot of talk about things that who he was as an individual, as far as in his career. And I started to reflect a little bit, and I'm going, I can't think of another person in wrestling history who did the same thing in two different companies.
Yeah.
Who went to the top of the mountain with one company as a babyface and then went to the top of another company as a heel. Right. Like that is it's unbelievable. And I had a chance to talk to Mark Raimondi, who wrote Say Hello to the Bad Guys last week. Great book.
I just finished the audio version.
Great book. If you haven't had a chance to go and check it out, please go to your way and read it. It's very, very well done. And Mark and I were talking after Hogan passed, and it's like the NWO as we know it in modern wrestling wouldn't be what we know it if Hogan hadn't dropped that leg on the Macho Man and joined with Hall and Nash. And again, to think about it, it's like, man, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that that he was able to pull off something so incredible like that in his career.
Yeah, just sometimes you have to, what's the saying? Sometimes you have to go away to be reappreciated. And yeah, Hogan never really went away, but like the Hulk Hogan persona went away. The train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and this new persona Hulk Hogan came along and freshened him up. As a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah.
And him, Hall and Nash had an influence on him, when it came to doing promos, because in Mark Raimondi's book, they're saying, Hogan was still doing the 80s style promo where, Hall and Nash were trying to, they're trying to do that, what we saw as the NWO promo with the quick cuts, black and white, somebody drops a line, somebody drops another line, and it reinvented, Hogan, to the point where, everything Vince and Hulk did in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
to take over the territories was now being used against Vince.
Yeah.
Bischoff was doing the same thing Vince did in the 80s when it came to acquiring talent, or raiding talent, whatever you want to call it. And, just, and the fact that, it's the one of the true times Vince, the only time Vince was really on his heels, and it says a lot.
Yeah.
But what a magical time, the Monday Night Wars era. There's only, to have lived through two eras like that is something special. As a kid, I lived through the 80s boom of Hogan, and then not only got to witness the Monday Night Wars era, but got to, participate in some of that.
Yeah.
Having been in ECW and WWE during their hottest periods. And that's all because Hogan took the chance and turned heel.
Yeah.
Originally they were going to have Sting do it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the third man, and I don't know how that would have worked. Hogan on a magazine cover, Hogan in the main event opens up so many more doors for folks. That I don't know if the NWO would have took off like it did had it not been for Hogan turning, willing to turn heel.
Yeah, I mean, Sting is fantastic, but he doesn't have the emphasis for the story the way that Hogan did, right?
Yeah.
The biggest star of the 80s is now the dirtiest heel of the 90s. I mean, that's the story, right? Like that's the story. And I think like you said, we may not even be talking about, we may not even be sitting here right now talking about this if it wasn't for the NWO, and I think that's a major component of this as well. Mass Sanity says there's rumors that if Vince couldn't get Hogan, he would have tried to build around Dusty Rhodes. Dusty was great, but he wasn't Hogan. He was already in his late 30s at that point. Yes, I've heard that story as well.
Well, there's also a story that Kerry Von Erich was thought to be in the running for that the Hogan role too. When in the 80s, WWF launched, Victory magazine, which eventually became WWE or WWF magazine, and Hogan slyly would send his photographers and reporter to different territories to do personality pieces, all under the guise that he's doing a story on them, but in reality he was trying to introduce the WWF audience to different talent that he was potentially going to bring in. So there's a WWF magazine that had a piece on the Von Erichs, just to smarten up the WWE audience in case in case it was going to be Kerry.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's also how he got in touch with Hulk. They sent Steve Taylor to an AWA show, and he's taking photos of the AWA and the wrestlers, and he had a moment he saw Hulk and went over and slipped him Vince's business card and said, "Give Vince a call."
Wow.
He slipped him his number. I don't know if it was business card. He said, "Hey, give Vince a call," and that's where the birth to that was the focal point of getting Hulk back into the WWE.
Wow.
WWF.
Wow. Let's see here. We got a couple more comments here. Mass Entity says Steve Austin may have made more money for WWE than Hulk Hogan, but that's like comparing Titanic to Star Wars. Inflation makes a difference. That's correct. Two different eras. I would argue still that Hogan was the bigger star than Steve Austin, even though Austin was the star of the Attitude Era. We wouldn't have had the Attitude Era without Hogan, and I think that's important context to remember. Hogan's WWE return was amazing. Yeah, we got to talk about that too. He came in as a heel. He crashed a truck into The Rock's car, and the crowd still cheered him at WrestleMania. I know WWE released the unedited audio without like JR and the King's commentary on the show. I have never heard crowd interaction, crowd noise like that in my life as I did during that segment. Rock hits him with the rock bottom. He gets up and starts hulking up. I mean, and you could literally hear the volume. Like it's such an auditory experience where you're listening to it and it's just like you can hear the crowd getting white hot. And it's just, I know that I think Hogan and Rock have both told the story where there was like a completely different match that was put together for that.
Yeah.
And the whole beginning, they both have, I think at some point they both have said, like when they were doing the head turns and stuff in the ring, they were like, okay, let's call it in the ring, like, and that's to that point, to your point too, Meanie, the ultimate showman. He knew how to work that crowd. And so did Dwayne. They both knew exactly what they needed to do in order to get through that match.
Yeah. It was basically, Hogan's greatest hits,
Yeah.
And they really didn't do much in that match, but one of my favorite parts, and nobody really even talks about it. Hogan Rock. Hogan's putting, some heat on Rock. He's like, come on, meatball. Which is what what Thunder Lips called Rocky in Rocky 3.
That's right.
He called him a meatball. So Thunder Lips versus Rocky, Hogan versus Rock.
Mm-hmm.
He's calling Rock, come on, meatball. And I'm just sitting there popping. I'm like, am I the only one who gets this reference right here? That Rocky 3 reference,
Thunder Lips in the flesh, baby.
And shout out to Bill Apter who put that all together,
Yeah.
He was just on the Busted Open radio, and I knew the story anyway. Just known Bill since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And Stallone's people reached out to the PWI offices, and they said, we're looking for a couple wrestlers. He said a photo of superstar Billy Graham and Hulk Hogan. And they chose Hulk. So
shout out to Bill Apter just because too. My man Bill.
Willie.
Wonderful Willie, baby. Sting turning heel would have been a nice shock. It may have sold some pay-per-views for WCW, but not the same impact. That is correct.
Yeah.
Kerry Von Erich looked great and could have sold a lot of shirts and posters, but he didn't have Hogan's personality or charisma.
Really didn't have that much. He couldn't really cut a promo. Kerry looked like $1 million. He definitely, his action figure had to work out to look like him. Just. But you get, you go back and watch, was it Super Clash?
Yeah.
Where he's about to wrestle Lawler for the unify the titles, and his promos really weren't on par. So Hulk, larger than life, he had an aura about him that he carried the wrestling world, and people I remember, being a kid and watching that, and people are like, when Bruno wrestled, that was real wrestling, that. But now that, you get a little bit older, you say, oh, yeah, I do wrestling. They go, oh, that WWE thing, that Hulk stuff.
Right. Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
The previous generation always thinks that their version of wrestling was better than the next one. So, but hey, you know what? I'll give credit. You go back and you look at some of the legends, Lou Thez, thought Harley Race did too much in the ring and thought he was a spot monkey. And, Bruno, got a little, bitter towards the next generation. Oh, Hulk Hogan with the steroids and all this stuff. But Hulk, when, Hulk was getting, he was over, he's, getting up there in age. He never took a shot at the next generation coming along, he kind of embraced it. When you think he went back to WWE and the Hogan Rock match, and then he's tag team champions with Edge.
Yeah.
He embraced the next generation, and it helped elevate him,
Well, like I said, it's been quite a week, man, and it's been very sad to lose such cultural icons in both of our lives and millions of lives of other people, and it's a lot, man. It's a lot to take in, and just a reminder of, again, like we say all the time when we have these type of episodes, it's like that the reminder that life is fleeting and it's so finite, right? And it's just, unfortunately, we're going to keep having these types of conversations, which sucks. And unfortunately, like I said, there's no good way to transition from this. But I am going to ask you a quick question, if you don't mind, good sir.
Yes.
If you would like to ask Meanie.
I would love to. It's time to ask me anything. Ask me something.
And don't forget to tweet us your questions using the hashtag AskMeanie. And I'm actually watching my youngest daughter walk up the street to her friend's house right now, and I don't know why she's got a handful of stuff. She's got what appears to be a purse, a toy, and looks like a pair of gardening shears. So this should be a fun discovery later. So
She's a big Brutus Beefcake fan.
Yeah, she is. I heard her doing the whole thing with the shears and stuff. They're little tiny kid-sized ones, so they're not like the big ones, but
Gotcha.
it's still nonetheless, she's still good with them. But Meanie, what you sipping on today, brother?
Old Faithful. Got the Polar raspberry lime. So
Perfect.
that I remembered to put in the fridge. Thank you.
I got myself the cheap shit from Aldi today. I got the sparkling frost, pink grapefruit flavor, the old reliable. So Here we go. We're gonna crack these suckers in 3, 2, 1. There she is.
Yep.
All right. Cheers, beers, pinkies up. Oh yeah.
So much better cold.
Oh, for sure. As soon as it hits, you're like, oh yeah, baby, that's it.
Yeah.
So we got 3 great questions today from Game Changer.
Hopefully I have 3 great answers.
From a group called Game Changer World Podcast. So I'm going to start at the top here. Wrestling has become more inclusive of its potential athletes over the past few decades. Is this partially the reason why wrestling pay isn't comparable to the territory paydays?
Do that one more
Sure.
time.
Wrestling has become more inclusive of its potential athletes over the last few decades. So I'm assuming like pulling from the NIL programs and ID and things like that in the NFL. Is this partially the reason why wrestling pay, so I guess he means wrestlers like paychecks, isn't comparable to the way that the territories used to do it?
I don't know. Just WWE always pulled in stars from other forms of sport and or entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
In the off season back in the 60s, the NFL players would come in and wrestle, and we talk about the 80s where they were bringing in Mr. T to wrestle and stuff like that. So, and that still was like at the waning the tail end of the territory system. So I don't know. I've always seen WWE pull from all wrestling in general, pull people in from different forms of sports and entertainment. So great question though. Great question.
Do you feel, and then in parentheses, especially independent wrestlers find it difficult to strike a balance between commingling with fans and protecting the business?
I mean, you can mingle with the fans and still protect the magic, that's why ECW was so, ECW connected so much with the fans because more than likely, after the show, we'd all be back at the hotel hanging out and interacting with each other. So, it just might be hard to know where to draw the line. I've seen, I've been at, the best place to be is the merch table, right? Because you're standing there talking to fans, making that connection. And then I look over at the next table and then the guy who's maybe not, as interactive, he's staring at his phone, and he keeps going outside to smoke a cigarette and wondering why he's not getting over and why he's not selling merch. It's just, you have to have that fine balance between interacting, but protecting the magic of wrestling, protecting your persona. And, we're there to entertain people,
Yeah.
Seeing guys at the merch table going, please buy a shirt. I need gas money to go home. Nobody wants to hear that, bro.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah. I could go on forever, and I don't want to accidentally say names, but
I can't imagine somebody would say that though.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
We don't even have money to get. Can somebody buy something? It's like, no, why don't you have a conversation with somebody?
Yeah.
And they might want to buy it, but nobody wants to be guilted into doing something. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm answering the question, but
no, I think you are.
It just brought that thought to my head where, independent wrestlers is no different than the indies are like modern territories without, the schedule, people go from place to place, but it's just a matter of, connecting with fans, wrestlers back then connected with the fans too, and still protected, their magic and their business. So
and the last question they have here rather is, would ECW had survived if the internet was available in greater capacity at the time? This is actually a question that I've thought about myself, and I'm curious to know your take on it.
Yeah, man. Imagine if ECW had YouTube.
Yeah.
And they could have, put the show up on YouTube and monetized the video. And, I see independent promotions now that have way better production value than ECW ever did, with entranceways and video screens. And I did a shout out to Brian Myers, Creative Pro Wrestling, who I worked for Friday. And I went back and watched the match on their YouTube, and like they're doing the match is over and they're doing replay of key moments in the match. I'm like, man, this is just like watching regular TV, and this is like an independent show. So yeah, if the ECW, they were just a victim of, they created a thing that was ripped off by WCW and WWF. That, once people discovered ECW, they thought ECW was ripping off the thing that ECW created.
Yeah.
And, it was like on that tail end, the early stages of the internet, which actually helped because we used to do like CyberSlam and stuff like that. But if we had YouTube, you could have just, monetized, the episodes and still been around,
I also think if things like Twitter had existed or even Instagram, I think there would have been a significantly larger component to keeping ECW around, right? I think you would have had a major groundswell when it comes to the support that y'all had on social media. Because the shit that y'all were doing, like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, imagine a New Jack match. Just pick one. And imagine somebody in the crowd filming something wild and being like, holy shit, New Jack just hit, Bubba Ray with a fucking stop sign, right? Like just pick 1,000 things, right? That shit would have been crazy on social media, especially if it was a situation like what TNA is doing with WWE, right?
Yeah.
Because that infrastructure could have existed. Man, that would have been something. What a unique time that would have been in wrestling if that would have happened. But
absolutely,
I want to thank you for your questions, y'all. We appreciate you. We appreciate you sending them in. Don't forget to use use the hashtag #AskMeanie, and we will ask them on the show. But Meanie,
oh yeah,
it's about that time. We're keep up to date with all things blue when they're not listening to the program.
Yeah, if you would like to follow the Blue Meanie on all forms of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Blue Meanie BWO, wherever you do your social mediaing. If you'd like to support the Blue Meanie, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Blue Meanie. If you'd like to support mine and the Meanie, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Blue Mind of the Meanie. MadCatBeardCare.com. Get the Blue Spruce Beard Oil or Balm. Shout out to Thornton. He's done an amazing job over there taking care of the cats in his neighborhood. Every dime you spend there goes to taking care of the feral cats in his neighborhood. He rounds them up, takes them to the vet, and releases them back better than he found them. So get the Blue Spruce Beard Oil or Balm, or both. The Ultra Pro Wrestling video game coming to all major consoles. Ultra Pro Wrestling contains not only original characters created by the amazing Hal Haney, but many real-world wrestlers, including myself, that I'm trying not to spoil. Go to ultraprowrestling.com or follow them on Twitter at UPW Video Game. That's ultraprowrestling.com or on Twitter at UPW Video Game. The figure collection's Bone Crushing Wrestler Series 1 variants of the Blue Meanie are available now. All Series 1s can be ordered right now at shop.figurecollections.com. That's shop.figurecollections.com. Type Blue Meanie in the search bar. Get regular Blue Meanie or BWO Blue Meanie. Either way, there's no wrong choice. Cameo.com /Blue Meanie BWO for birthdays, holidays, and well wishes. I just did 2 these week, and they're really fun to do, man. And just try to make somebody's day a little bit better. So remember, please book through the site. Don't book through the app. The app takes way too much of a cut of your hard-earned money that the talent does not see. So go to cameo.com /Blue Meanie BWO. But most importantly, Mr. Barnard, where can we find you, sir?
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and I'm not even on Blue Sky anymore. I don't even know why I say it. But in case you want to follow me there, you can. This is Goober. Yes, it's my handle. No, I'm not changing it. It's a brand, pal. Go ahead and subscribe over at foundationradio.net or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. The episode audio versions, rather, of my conversations with author Mark Raimondi and WWE superstar Chelsea Green are now live over there. And you can also check them out on foundationradio.net. Don't forget to check me out at Screen Rant at the Sportster. Sportster is all things wrestling. Screen Rant is all things network television. So go ahead and check that out as well. Got some fun stuff coming up down the pipeline. And don't forget, next weekend I'll be coming to you live from somewhere in New Jersey for SummerSlam that I'll be covering for the Sportster. So I will see you all there. We may be doing a live earlier version of this episode. We will figure it out, and we will let you know where we're going to be. Maybe I'll do it from the stands at SummerSlam. We'll see, y'all. We'll see. But go ahead and check out that coverage there. Pro Wrestling
Fun.
Yeah, this will be me the whole time. If you can see, this is why also you should sign up, by the way, at patreon.com /Mind of the Meanie, because you can see my face right now, because it's just going to be quiet for a second, just the background music, Meanie, just so you can see what I'll be doing in the press box. And that's it. That's the only thing I'm going to be doing. That's it. Nothing else. So if you want to see that face that I just made, go to patreon.com /Mind of the Meanie. Tiers start at just $10 a month. And you get to hang out with us each and every week while we record the show live. It's only exclusive access to you and the Pod Squad, because you'll be a part of that. And when you sign up, sir, you'll get an official Pod Squad membership card signed in blue ink.
Yeah.
By the Blue Guy himself. As we know, his first actual given name is Blue, according to our friend Dave LaGreca. So Blue himself will sign the card for you, and you'll get it.
Good.
So go ahead, check it out there. Go sign up today. ProWrestlingTees.com /Mind of the Meanie. Pick up a shirt and keep the lights on at Casa DeMeanie in the Barnard home for wayward and troubled youth. Don't forget to subscribe today at YouTube.com /@Mind of the Meanie. All of our episodes going all the way back in time to the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, 2021, when Meanie and I started this fine weekly program for you. So go and check it out right now. And don't forget to follow us on all of our socials at Mind of the Meanie. We want to thank you for listening each and every week. We appreciate you. And Blue Guy, we appreciate you for giving us your time, sir. We are grateful for you, and we are also grateful for you, friends. Leave us a 5-star review.
Please.
And it's actually, that counts for something, not a 5-star match, because that's an arbitrary rating. But 5-star review for us would be fantastic. So go ahead and subscribe there, and subscribe to the YouTube page, and let us know that y'all love us, because we love you too. For the Blue Meanie, I am Adam Barnard. Join us again each and every week as we take a trip through the mind of the Meanie. Peace.
Blue World Order.
This This episode of Mind of the Meanie is hosted and executively produced by the Blue Meanie and Adam Barnard. It was mixed and engineered by Carl Pinnell. Additional narration is provided by the executive voice, Sam Krebs. That's me. Our intro music was performed by the Swamp Candles. Our outro music was performed by Chikara. Additional musical accompaniment is performed by Enrichment. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, or X or whatever, at Mind of the Meanie, and become part of the Pod Squad by going to patreon.com/Mind of the Meanie. Find our entire show archive at mindofthemeanie.com. This has been a Butts Carlton media production. Butts Carlton, proprietor.
Blue World Order.
That was Blue Meanie's brain out.